I'm Alex, and I'm writing a book. Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk today about why I decided to start writing a book. In part, it was as a result of why not give it a try. I haven't really done anything of this scale ever before, so that in itself is very exciting. I've been reading fiction, all sorts, mostly fiction, like for most of my life. And I felt like it was part time for me to perhaps be a part of that, whether it just be in my own capacity. Whether this book gets published or not, I mean, it certainly is ideal. I mean, I don't think anybody really goes into a big project thinking that it's not going to result in something spectacular, but certainly one must be realistic with that as well. Especially, this is my first book. Who knows? It might be trash, but I suppose that's part of the journey and part of the reason that we write. Whether it's successful or not, even just the act of writing is very exciting. It reveals a lot from you internally. So whether it be simply your thoughts on a particular topic, I mean, you wouldn't have really realized that maybe you have such complex thoughts on a topic until suddenly it arises in a book that you're writing, or a piece of writing that you're doing, and all of a sudden, you have to have these fully fledged thoughts, or at least have some foundation of thought on these topics. Or I suppose a good writer would then, if they don't know anything about it, maybe their character doesn't know anything about it, and you go on that journey together. That's what it really is all about, the creative pursuit overall. Sort of having all of these stories and ideas in one's head. It's very gratifying to be able to put them to paper and come back and be proud of what you've written. That's not always going to be the case, of course. There's going to be some things that you write that are just going to be absolute trash, and you're just going to, I don't know, you're going to have to throw them away when they're trash. But, or you could also just keep them as sort of mementos of your learning journey, your writing process. And who knows, maybe those ideas, maybe they were just too complex, too hard to approach from sort of a beginner's mindset. I suppose that's where having that mindset helps, and it doesn't. Beginner's mindset, I suppose, it does mean that you don't put your ego into it. This isn't about you, it's about learning a skill. So that in itself can be very helpful, but to sort of get so stuck in the beginner's mindset that you're like, well, I might as well not attempt anything big. I'm never going to be able to achieve something like that, or I would never bring it fully to fruition, or even if I did, I wouldn't do it justice. Those aren't worthy excuses, to be honest. I mean, sure, I've been held back by them, and I know plenty of people do, but actually they're not good enough for me and for anybody else. It's not a good enough excuse. I mean, even just the act and the practice of writing is going to be extremely valuable. Even just with self-knowledge to some degree. I mean, writing, it feels like it can't help but be therapy in some way or another. I mean, I'm not saying go out and replace your therapist by writing a novel, but I don't know. There's certainly a lot to writing, in a way, pure form of linguistic thought that puts ideas together, puts concepts together, and makes them work as one. You're sort of this mechanic jumping in with all these various pieces of language, pieces of writing, pieces of idea, and you need to become the engineer who puts it all together, and successfully, rather than it just being another pile of scrap, whether it be into a scrap sculpture, wherever this metaphor is going, or whether it be into an effective vehicle. Depends what you need it to be. It doesn't have to be all the things. It doesn't have to be more than an artifact when it's done, perhaps. But I would certainly highly recommend writing. I mean, I think I've sort of always done it. I suppose that's one of those things of having started actually writing a book, is that I've actually been trying to write a book since I was about 13. I mean, some of my family will know, the number of times I presented them with half a page of here's some teenage fueled writing, so please come and critique. And most of it is, hey, you seem to have forgotten all the rules of writing. All of a sudden, all of the rules of English are just gone from your mind, and you end up writing these really, I don't know, I suppose they were of a time and of an age, certainly, and so to be able to look back on those in the correct perspective is also very useful. Whether it be simply for the fact of, hey, I had a good idea once, I didn't have the skills to execute on it, but maybe now I do. Or maybe it was just a trash idea, but where it came from was still genuine and worth exploring, perhaps, elsewhere. Or maybe it's not worth exploring, maybe it's part of your life that is worth not returning to. Good job. I'm very much enjoying this writing process. It's very tough, definitely, but I certainly find much reward and much gratification in even just having written, say, 1,000 words in a day. Not that I do that every day. Certainly that would be a good goal, and certainly there's something I would like to achieve, but I mean, you work a full-time job, there are other things going on, you have friends and family and relationships to manage, so there isn't always even just an hour to get 1,000 words down in a day. I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind having an hour a day, and maybe it's about setting it for yourself. But yeah, I've been writing for a while, and I think I've gotten pretty far. I mean, certainly haven't even reached the halfway point of my book, but I've planned it all out, having mapped the full rising tension graph, for each of the subplots and the main overarching plots, and sort of how you have this one curve, fine, but then along the way you have all these little mountains. So I've mountains of tension. Going through and actually planning has been very helpful for me. I mean, so I'm at that point where I'm even at the point where I've got the next chapter and a half planned out, in bullet form, and I know where I'm going. So that is very helpful. I would definitely, all those people who say they can just write a book straight off, I think they call it pantsing, just doing it, sitting down and seeing where it takes you, and yeah, fair enough, but not for me. I mean, certainly I'm not planning everything down to even the details per chapter, until I've already written the chapter before or 2 chapters before, and then at least you get the perspective of, okay, well, I know more or less where I'm going. I need to hit this dramatic peak some point, and sort of watching your word count and sort of seeing where that point needs to sit, and sort of maybe I've written too much at this point. I'm definitely at that point where I'm trying not to cut too much yet, trying to just get the full story out in a first draft, and then I'll go and I'll edit it. Not that I'm not doing editing now, but it's very language-based edits, and I'm sort of I've swapped tenses. I got into the point where I'd swapped tenses already. I had to rewrite the whole thing from first person back to third person. So I'm definitely making those kinds of beginner mistakes of okay, you've chosen the wrong tense. It's not going to work for the rest of you, especially if you're wanting to jump character perspectives and stuff like that. First person is really inside someone's head, inside of their eyeballs, and I felt I was getting super stuck with that. And you're well, the character can only see so much. I only have this field of vision. And it's yes, fair enough, but also I kept getting limp. I felt I was getting stuck on that. So definitely bringing the camera out and having it sit back here somewhere to be in third person I think is very helpful. And I can see why a lot of writers use it, especially when trying to tell bigger stories that aren't not that my story isn't one or two people's very personal journey. That is definitely still the case. But being able to swap those perspectives a lot more simply between characters, because even though probably 95% of the book is still going to be from the one main character's perspective, it's still very useful to pepper in the occasional scene here and there for the sake of the story or for the sake of other characters' development, to sort of throw in there where your main character doesn't see everything. The story doesn't revolve around their perception of it. I mean, certainly it does. The main character's perception really does matter, but it's not the whole thing. what they see and what they do isn't everything. It needs to happen for this big story to happen. So like I need other characters who are running off in the background to do something different and interesting to try and sort of facilitate the main plan, facilitate the main characters, and just have other things going on rather than just these two heroes taking on the big bad, you know? So there needs to be something a little bit different, some other stories to tell, and like this story isn't limited to just these two. There's so much more to be able to tell, and that's where like being in the right tense, like wherever that tangent went, but certainly being in the right tense certainly helped. And it's at that point, like, you know, those sort of beginner mistakes, beginner journey in writing, and I think I forget now how many words I'm at, but I think I'm around like 70,000. We'll check. How many words am I at? I'm not gonna check now. Yeah, I'm basically at the point. I'm writing chapter 19, halfway through chapter 19. Each of the chapters is about at minimum 1,500 words to 3,000 words, so you can sort of have a rough estimate of how far I've gotten. I haven't even reached like 1/3 of the story yet. Like I've got like we've had the inciting incident, but like that's not everything. There is still so much more that needs to happen, and there are so many more like cogs that need to be put into place. So there's so much more work to do, but like I'm very excited, and this project definitely brings me a lot of joy. So while that is still a thing, I will carry on. And even when it's not still a thing, it's still worth pursuing. And like as I say, like even if this particular book doesn't get published, like I think I always have written like in pockets here and there, whether it be from like scribbled stories in journals or like the odd Word document. So this is only the first time I've gotten this far into a story, and that is also very exciting. To sort of see all these things come together, and it hasn't broken yet. The story is not broken yet, and I think like that's exciting. Like I'm no longer sitting down and being like, I don't know what these character puppets need to do, make them dance, and yet I do. Like I do know what they need to do. Not always in every single chapter, not in every single scenario. Like I definitely think through that a lot more, but it's very exciting where what I need to do is actually find the time to sit down and write, because I already have the whole like next chapter or two planned out. Like I've been sitting and imagining it the whole time and doing all those other things that take up your day. Certainly that's what like having manual tasks to do, like whether it just be like cleaning the house, hanging up laundry, watering the plants, wandering around the garden. It's those moments where your brain isn't distracted by being on YouTube, looking at my phone. You actually get to think about these things. I mean, you actually actively think about these things. Like you need to set aside thinking time for writing. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize how much thought needs to go in behind it. You can't just like sit down and make words appear. Or at least I can't. Certainly not yet, perhaps. But it's incredibly exciting to sort of see a big goal manifesting in front of your eyes, making active strides towards it. Like no matter how else the rest of life gets, like there's always this book project, and that makes me happy. And it's not the only creative project that I have going on. Like I'm busy learning oil painting and portrait painting and landscape painting at the same time. So having all these different pursuits really does help fuel through like the nonsense of the day to day. Like it really is a bit of a savior. Whether you're writing a book or you're painting or you're drawing, just like have that creative pursuit, have that outlet, have that greater goal that is outside of the humdrum of daily life. Like, and it doesn't have to be creative, but for me it is, and that's where this book lies. And sure, if one day it could be published, wonderful. But even if it is just a stepping stone to me writing more, and those are the ones that get published, great. Do I have a goal of being published? Yes, ideally. I mean, I wouldn't want to put this much work in just for the sake of myself. I mean, like, sure, I could, but also it's at that point where I've put that much work into it. It's going to be valuable to somebody else as well, to some degree. I'm not saying it's going to be the next bestseller, all that kind of stuff, but certainly, like, sell a few copies, have a few people read it. That would be great. And yeah, I suppose that's the goal in some way or another. is to have something to show for my time. Rather than, I mean, like, I'm definitely one of those people who very happily just spend 9 hours doing stuff of not much value in front of a computer screen, and just spend the day scrolling and watching and consuming other people's ideas. And like, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Like, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is get my idea to be the thing that people are consuming. I don't want that to be my brain the whole time. It's just like other people's ideas, other people's thoughts, other people's words, other people's images. I need to be making my own, and I find a lot of joy in doing it. So this is my writing project, and I'm going to try to keep going on with it. Definitely going to keep going on with it. I mean, like, you can see my current like standing desk setup. It's just like laptop with random books underneath in my art studio. So like, that's just how things need to be. I'm very lucky to have the space to close the door and do what I need to do. And so I'm not going to take these things for granted. Make the space that I've set aside for myself, that I pay rent for, make money for itself in some way or another. For now, it just needs to satisfy me, keep me happy, keep me moving through that everyday nonsense while I achieve these other goals. But I've got the space, I have the wherewithal to do it, and now it's on me to just get it done. So I can see a lot of other people being like in a similar scenario, like where, like, cool, like, even if it's just for writing, okay, it's like, I'm not going to talk about painting and stuff now. Writing specifically, like, do you have a word processing device? Like, if so, you can write. Like, sure, it's probably not great to write a book on your phone, but you can. I'm sure there are people who have, whether it be like voice to text. I've not done that myself, but I've certainly had fantasies of walking around the garden dictating my book through my phone. Cool. I'm sure you could do that. Otherwise, you do not need a fancy laptop or computer or tablet to write a book. Like, you need a Google Sheets. You might need a few. I mean, I found that like after a few 10,000 words, like, actually, like the Google Sheets start to break after about like 30,000 words. So like, I'm running, I think, like 4 or 5 Google Sheets at the moment. So as it starts slowing down, as the corrections for like misspelled words and things start appearing in the wrong place, like that's when you know your Google Sheet is starting to like reach the edge of its capacity. Start a new one. So it's not hard. And you just keep going. I'm gonna need to start a new one soon as well. And like, that in itself, like having that mini goal of whether it's write 1,000 words just today, just get 1,000 words out. It can be trash. They can be planning. They can be prep. They can be some arbitrary bit of world building elsewhere. It doesn't even have to be on where your book is currently. Just get that done. Get 1,000 words out of random waffle about your world and the story you're trying to tell. Or like finish a chapter. Like, I mean, like, as I said, most of my chapters are like 1,500 words to 3,000 words long. So like, you could get that done in a day. Like, especially if you know where you're going. You've sort of got a basic idea of where you're going. Like, whether you've planned it out, you've got like bullet points in your document you're waiting to go, or you just have it all in your head. Then go write it down. Like, put it down. Stop worrying about your language. You'll come back to it. Like, don't sit there fapping, should I be using the or the I? Or, I don't know, different verbiages. Like, get the base writing down that you can, but also, like, it's your first draft. You're going to come back and change this probably. You're going to come back with the vacuum cleaner. It's fine. You'll clean it up. Just get that first draft out. And that's where I am. Like, get that first draft out. And then I can edit it. Like, I mean, I'm editing as I go. So like, not every day when I sit down and want to do writing work, do I sit down and work, like writing new words. Often it can just be, okay, well, I'm just going to go through and read the last 5 chapters that I wrote and make small edits. Make sure that I'm familiar with where the story has just been and where it's going. Even just doing that, like, I've picked up scenes where I'm like, either like, I haven't made use of this other character that I suddenly introduced for the sake of I don't know, showing empathy between the characters. Like this new thing that I've introduced, like I don't do anything else with. So either I need to contextualize it further, bring it up later on for continuation of the lesson, or is there a better way to teach that lesson to the characters and stuff like that, which you'll start thinking about. So yeah, a lot of writing is just thinking about it for a long time, but don't get stuck on that. Get writing, get it down on paper somehow. Whether you're writing it on pencil and paper and you eventually transcribe the whole thing into some digital device. If writing a book is what you want to do, certainly is what I would like to do, and that's what I'm going to keep talking about over here, is writing this book. At the same time, I'm going to keep painting, and there are certainly going to be points where those two are going to intersect, where what I'm thinking about for the book, I might feel like, I really just want to represent the scene, or I really just want to properly visualize who this character is, what they are, who they are. Keep thinking about the idea, keep it in my brain in whichever format it needs to be in for me to keep progressing. So for me to keep thinking fresh thoughts, useful thoughts, actionable thoughts about what needs to be done. That was a very rambly video around me writing my first book. As with writing my first book, I'm also learning this. So welcome to this journey. Hopefully there will be a published book, maybe more than one. Not at the end of this journey, but certainly along it. And that's very exciting. I'm very excited to try and share as much of this process as possible. I mean, like, I'm not going to be sharing the book. Like, nobody's really going to be seeing that until it's ready to be published. I mean, like, sure, there's going to be people going to get to read it and edit it, perhaps, at some point. But I'm not going to be sharing the book itself. But certainly you'll be able to see scenes, and definitely places where I've painted some of the scenes. I'll show those off. I might not give the full context behind the scenes that's being painted, but certainly there'll be little pockets of like, hey, here's this character. Like, aren't they cool? Or here's this scene. Like, isn't it really super epic? That's me. I'm Alex, and I'm writing a book. And hopefully one day maybe you'll get to see it. But for now, it's just me. That's also fine for now, because I'm enjoying it too. And I suppose that is the ultimate point of doing something like different, is you need to enjoy it. And so I do. Like and subscribe. This is a brand new little YouTube channel, so it's going to be very helpful to help me get off the ground with this. Yeah, please come along for the ride and support me in whichever way you feel like you would like to. That's me. I'll see you in the future, I'm sure. Hopefully with some more writing news.